had the amazing privilege to be benefactor of programs and organizations, and just always have been a community advocate in one way or another. And now, in the last 5 years, I've been a grassroots campaign organizer, and have been working in politics. And I have decided that it's my time to step up and actually go out and try and run for office and make my community a better place on the city council.
Who have you campaigned for?
Oh, many candidates. Everyone from municipal levels, from like Kaylin Koppel, Pam Walzer, Michael Herron, all the way up to Steve Bullock, actually, our current governor.
All right. Let's have the next man on the line here. This is Jack Rowan, right?
Yes.
All right, Jack, tell us about yourself. Why are you in the race?
I've been living in Missoula a little over 20 years now. I've been involved in all sorts of nonprofit organizations like Home Resource and the North Missoula Community Development Corporation. And I felt, particularly given that the council is going to be going through a transition, none of the incumbents except for Patrick Weaselhead are running again, that this was a time when I think experience and a breadth of knowledge about the issues that we face as a community are very important. And so I felt like this was a good time for me to step up and offer my services to the citizens of Missoula.
All right. And our final candidate in the room today is Mr. Harlan Wells. Harlan, if you've got that third mic there, go ahead and use that one.
Good
I'll
morning.
make sure it's turned on.
Oh.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be in the race.
Well, good morning. I think the easiest way to explain why I want to be in the race is diversity. And diversity in a way most people wouldn't think. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one with a finance business background of the candidates. And I want to make sure that the city council keeps a fiscal anchor once Adam leaves. So, I think it's great that we have 11 other candidates or council members that will be activists and worried about those things. And I just want to make sure that the voice of small businesses and fiscal responsibility stay on the council.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and start with you and move the way back with the first question, which is, what do you think is the most important issue facing Missoula City, the government body you'll be making a vote for, during this next cycle? What is the top-of-mind issue for you?
Property taxes. So when you look at inflation over the last 10 years, it's about 22%. And then depending on what numbers you look at, when you look at how much property taxes, mill levies have gone up, they're 4 to 7 times higher than what inflation is. So you also have a situation where the area median income is actually lower than it was 10 years ago. So you have basically half the population with less purchasing power now than they did 22 years ago. So if the property taxes keep going up the way they are, we're basically making Missoula uncompetitive as a city in the state of Montana.
All right. Let's move on over to Jack. Jack, why don't you answer that question? What's the most important issue facing Missoula City Council in the next year, you think?
I think affordable housing, so similar to what Harlan is talking about, as the area median income has stagnated, the price of homes, even rentals, has continued to move up. So being able to just basically be able to afford to live here is becoming much more of a challenge for people. And I think the other thing is that as we have built some more affordable housing units, they all tend to be clustered, and so we ended up with a more separated society instead of an integrated society where people of all means are living together and getting to know each other and working together. So that's one of the things that I think is most important for us to address.
All right. And Island, what's the most important issue you think facing City Council this next year?
I am actually also going to echo Harlan. I absolutely believe that property taxes and having the entire tax burden of Missoula's infrastructure being entirely on homeowners. Personally, from having the experience of working on campaigns for different mill levies, tech levies, for all of these very important things that keep Missoula beautiful and accessible and a wonderful community as it is. But right now, especially with how many folks are on fixed income within Ward 2 as well as just in Missoula, we're pushing folks out that have been here for 20, 30, 50 years, and it's not fair, and we need to be able to find other options of tax revenue in Missoula.
All right. We've got the issues, major issues affecting Missoulians. I want to know what the answers are to these problems. We'll talk about that when we get back. I'll have you explain what you mean by other options other than property taxes. Does that mean a sales tax? We'll talk a little bit about how we might decrease property taxes, because does that mean decreasing services? And we'll talk about the issue of housing. That could imply, if you do it in the wrong way or in a certain way, I should say, an increase of property taxes. So you might be conflicting with each other here, which is great because this is a kind of a forum, right? We want to see that happen. So give us a call, 721-1290, to get your questions in. I don't have to be the only showboat here. I know both of our signals are up now. We lived on the 1290 signal through the storm, but now we've got the 101.5 signal up as well. Give us a call at 721-1290 to get your question in. We'll be back after a quick commercial break. All right, we're back on the Talkback Show, taking your questions and calls. If you've got them, 721-1290, or maybe you don't care about Missoula city politics. Whatever, Missoula, that's up to you. I'm going to be asking questions because I'm interested. The question I had as we left, and I'm going to go ahead and start with Island and work my way back to Harlan, is how do you deal with the issue of taxes? You said you felt that there was too much of a burden being put on property owners, and that it was pricing people out of Missoula. It's actually something I've seen, a lot of people moving out into the county and away from the city, or into Ravalli County or Mineral County to get away from the tax burden here. And I want to hear what your solution might be.
Well, at this present moment, I don't actually have a set solution, but what I've been hearing from folks on the doors, as well as doing some research on it, is absolutely not sales tax. I was being raised here in Montana. I kind of adore the fact that we don't have a sales tax, as well as most of the community. But I have heard such options such as gas tax, increasing the bed tax, tourist tax, or...
Aren't those all sales taxes?
I meant...
I mean, just technically they are, right?
Yes, you're right. I meant specifically on products in a store or a gas station.
Okay. You mean like a general sales tax?
Yeah, like a general overall state sales
specific,
tax.
You're from out of state sales tax. Mm-hmm. Okay, I got it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Especially those California.
Yeah, the extra California tax.
Yes.
So I know some of my bosses from New York are in town today, and I would definitely not advocate for an increased New Yorker tax, just so you know, guys. So you do? Are you advocating then for those taxes, an increased gas tax, an increased bed tax, or are you just still thinking about it? And
I'm still mulling it over. I'm not going to be advocating for one way or another until I'm able to do some more research and meet with folks that are actually more learned in these topics and these policies, as well as I definitely want to be able to talk to all of the folks in Ward 2 first before I'm able to actually go forward and put something down, because I would absolutely hate to advocate for a policy that actually hinders or hurts some folks here in Missoula. So.
All right. Let's shift on over. And by the way, every tax hurts someone, right? So I wanted to speak with you real quick. I want you to, first of all, address the tax issue, and then I'm going to also have you touch on your idea for maybe inclusive housing and more affordable housing in Missoula.
Sure. Yeah, taxes is an issue that, much like Eileen, I need to do some more research on, and what are the options. A gas tax to me makes some sense because it's use-based. You know, the more you use the resources, the more you're paying into the system to help support that. I also generally, my experience in Montana is that there's just no support for an across-the-board sales tax. So anything that would shift the revenue generating away from property taxes and onto those kind of things would be a long-term negotiation. It's not something we can answer in the next 12 months. In terms of housing, there are a number of programs that are already in place and things that we can continue to pursue. There's land trust, which is a way in which the land in which a home exists is put into a long-term trust, and therefore the tax burden on that is shifted into, instead of an annual, it's annual amortized over a long period of time. There's ways that we can do that to try to reduce the basic cost of getting into a home, and then sharing that those long-term costs as a community.
All right. Harlan, if you could tackle those issues real quick, and then we'll go to callers. I know we have the lines full, which is awesome. Apparently guilting everybody into thinking they didn't care about Missoula city politics is the way to go. All right, Harlan, tell us your thoughts on taxes and property.
So both of these items could be a half-hour show on themselves, so I will try and keep it as simple as possible, or as quick as possible, I should say, because it's not simple. So for revenue, the easiest way or the most equitable way to increase revenue is to encourage more businesses to come to Missoula. In 2014, our taxes were already 10 to 15% higher than every other major city in Montana. That was before the school bond, or that was before the parks bond. That was before the 5.7% tax increase. That was before the $158 million school bond, which is going to raise property taxes 10% across the board.
And before the new tax increase that was proposed at City Council this week, right? Something like 6%, if I'm not mistaken.
So I haven't heard that one yet, but I'm sure I will Monday. The point I'm trying to make, though, is that other cities in Montana have a higher industrial tax base, which is where they bring in most of their money. And Missoula and the county as a whole has lost most of its industry. It's lost the forest industry. It's lost Smurfit Stone. It's lost a lot of stuff. So until we can become more attractive to other businesses, the only people that can continue to pay for the cost of doing business is the homeowners. And so it's a chicken or the egg. We keep raising these property taxes, which we're going to be if these bonds pass 20 to 30% higher than everybody else. How do you then get the new businesses? How do you get the entrepreneurs to want to start a business here instead of Great Falls, Bozeman, Kalispell? So it's an all stop on taxes. Get the message out that Missoula is open for business. Get those businesses in and start bringing in the tax break.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
You stay, even if you just stop the tax increases, right? You're still at what you said, what 10% above everybody else?
15% as of 2014.
So you haven't really solved the problem yet, have you?
You hope that the other cities start bringing their taxes up and they go, hey, Missoula's is here. Why don't we bring it up to there? I would love to be able to say you just start cutting budgets and everything else. I don't know if that's politically acceptable. I don't know with the current city council and the current mayor, we're going to get that through. All
right, I got to ask each of you. I'm going to ask you. Everybody has watched government at some point in their life and said, why are they doing that? It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat or if you're a Green or a Libertarian. Everybody has seen something they think that the government is a little bit out of line on. And I want to ask you later in the show, we're going to go to callers first, but is there anything that Missoula City could spend less money on? Think about that over the break. We'll be back in just a second taking your calls. Our first caller Kathy, will be up on the line right after the break.
Vic here. For some time now, I've been offering tips about how to deal with the IRS if you've fallen behind on your taxes. Telling you to call Optima Tax Relief because they're the best trained, most trustworthy, blah, blah, and blah. But now the message is so familiar, you may not be listening. Oh, it's him again. Well, here's the important message. Call Optima Tax Relief. They can help you resolve your IRS issues. The government, can garnish your wages. They can levy your bank account, even take your home or business. To be fair, the IRS also has a new program called the Fresh Start Initiative to help you with that debt. So we've given you clever slogans. Don't mess with the IRS. They'd rather settle for less than bother you more. Now the clever thing for you to do is call Optima Tax Relief now for your free consultation.
Call 800-501-0866. 800-501-0866. 800-501-0866. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Cool night out. It's Wednesday, August 19th at Northwest Plastic Surgery. Angela, what's this new treatment all about?
Fat removal and body shaping, contouring. It's called Cool Sculpt. It's the fat freezing machine with zero downtime. So they kind of call it the lunchtime fat loss treatment.
Free consultations available, but spots are limited, so call for reservations at 728-3811. Come meet their new associate, Dr. Michael Harrell, located on Great Northern Loop off Mullen Road. Visit nwpsa.com.
At Les Schwab Tires, we're all about doing the right thing, and we'd like to remind you of the right thing to do out there on the road this summer. Like when you find yourself alongside someone at a stop sign in the middle of the gnarliest air drum solo ever performed in air drumming history. Don't stare and don't judge. Instead, pump your fist and nod your head to let him know he's really nailing it. And remember that from free flat repairs to free brake checks, our best tire value promise has you covered. Les Schwab Tires, doing the right thing since 1952.
Hi, I'm John Medine, new owner of Wireless Connection, your Montana-owned Verizon Wireless premium retailer. You can get Verizon phones and service almost anywhere these days. At Wireless Connection, we are committed to providing the friendliest customer experience in the industry. Come into our store to see the difference for any of your Verizon needs. With little to no wait times, we'll make sure you get service with a smile and leave with a positive experience.
Wireless Connection has been so helpful for my business. The new store looks great and the owners are so friendly. Everyone says they have customer service, but at Wireless Connection, I truly experienced it. I would recommend them for your business.
We even have cell phone classes daily. Just stop in our newly remodeled location in Southgate Mall next to the Mustard Seed, and we can show you everything you want to know about using your phone. Now you have a friend in the Verizon business. We invite you to come see our newly remodeled Southgate Mall store next to the Mustard Seed. Wireless Connection, your Verizon wireless premium retailer.
All right, we're back on Talk Back. I want to go to our first caller quick. Pete, you're on. Please ask a question that all three candidates can answer.
Yes. The question I have, first a comment.
Well, hold on just a second, Pete. They're strapping on their headphones. Just give them a break. You can formulate your question better in a few seconds. All right, here we go. You're up.
First a comment. I too was aware that our tax burden is higher than the rest of the major cities in the state, and I saw the Montana Business Quarterly published by the university several months ago, which in turn makes us less attractive for businesses to locate here if they know how to add and subtract. Yet we're trying to reduce our tax burden. And I'm wondering, of the candidates, have any of you taken the time to read the Montana Supreme Court decision in the early 90s about the then attempted condemnation of the water company, and why the Supreme Court at that time decided against it?
All right.
I think you'd find it very revealing as you compare it to the facts now.
Thanks for your call, Pete. All right, this one should be quick and fast. Have any of you read I think it was actually in the 80s, but have you read the Supreme Court decision on the last water trial when Missoula tried to condemn the water system?
This is Harlan, yes.
All right. Over to you.
This is Jack Rowan, and no, I haven't. I have to admit that I'm unfamiliar with that.
All right, Island.
I have also not read it, no. I was
All right.
not familiar.
Well, there's your answer, Pete. Let's go ahead and take the next call. Mike, you're on. Please ask a question all candidates can answer.
Well, all right. One is I'm listening to them say about more taxes. I don't hear how you're going to cut more spending because you're grossly overspending. And I live on Grove Street down here. That street don't need to be washed every damn day. I could live all year without being washed. Put a snowplow in the wintertime. I'd appreciate the snow being plowed, but not washed. It's fine. It's not going to get zipped. So look for cutting this. I have to, when my income goes down, my spending goes down. You people have your income go down, your spending goes up.
All right, Mike. Thanks for your call.
Bye.
All right. What do you guys think? That kind of follows up my question. Real quick, why don't you try to answer that? Is there anything that you can consider cutting from Missoula City expenditures? Let's start with Island.
You know, I very much appreciate all of the programs and infrastructure and maintenance that is done in Missoula, but absolutely understand the fact that some spending may need to be cut. From what I'm hearing on the doors from folks when I go out and talk to them, depending on who it is, they want to do cut buses or cut trails and parks because folks don't use them, but at the same time, other Missoulians do. So I'm going to go and take a closer look into different programs that we could possibly take some spending from.
All right. Let's go over to Jack.
Yeah, so particularly on the caller's question about the street washing.
Yeah,
that's something I'm a strong advocate for in the budgetary process for not assuming anything of not assuming, okay, well, how much are we going to increase last year's budget? But to really look at how are we spending and how can we look at the best use of our resources. When it comes to cleaning streets, I realize that it's not just an aesthetics. There are things, we have storm drains and removal of debris helps with the getting that water away from causing safety hazards and so forth. So I'm not ready to say, yeah, we got to cut street cleaning. But we do need to take a very hard look at how we can bring things down and what are overuses.
All right, Harlan, I'm basically going to give you just a chance to say 2 or 3 words because I got to go to a quick break. But if something comes to mind, something that can be cut, I'll let you respond more in full after the break.
The word I want to talk about when we get back is productivity.
Productivity. All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
This is Talkback with Peter Christian and John King. 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and now 101.5 FM.
Newstalk KGVO,
Missoula's news and weather station.
Talkback is brought to you by the Mustard Seed Restaurant, by NC Design Studio, Herbert and Gerbert Sandwich Shop, Kootenai Creek Village, and Dig It Excavating.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
All right, we're continuing our Ward 2 Council Candidate Forum here on Talkback today. Now, I realize not everybody in Missoula lives in Ward 2, which, by the way, encompasses most of the northwest section of town along, I believe it's along Broadway, and then out not out to like the Y, but in Speckles across Mullen, and then out towards the highway along like where the Harry Potterville is, and all those tight communities up North Reserve. So that's basic, general, horrible John office cuff description of Ward 2. But their vote will affect all of us, because they're going to be making decisions for City Council, and we'll be taking your questions and calls during the show. One rule during our forum shows is that you need to ask a question that all three candidates can answer, not too hard. So do that by calling 721-1290. I'm serious. I really would like to hear your questions. 721-1290, and we'll put your question on the air. All right, we were at Harlan when we left. You said productivity when I asked, is there anything that you can think of that Missoula government should cut? This is after a response from Mike, who mentioned the street cleaning on his particular street in town. So you're back, Harlan.
Yes, well, let's be clear. I don't want to cut productivity. I want to increase productivity. So for those of you who do not know, I have a master's degree in business administration, and so you get a lot of case study work on proving efficiencies of businesses. Well, a city government is no different than a business. And I've worked both in the private and the public sector, and it just amazes me in the public sector that at the end of each month, there's not an analysis of where we can find ways to be more efficient. When I was in the private sector, it didn't matter how good of a month I had. My managers sat me down and said, okay, how are we going to improve a little bit next month? And it's the biggest reason I'm scared of the city prevailing in Mountain Water. You have a for-profit business that looks for efficiencies every day to try and make it more, to increase the business efficiencies, and you're going to give it to the hands of a city government that is very status quo in the way things are done. So the first thing I would do, and I don't know exactly how much authority a single council person would have, but I would want to go to each of the departments in the city and say, okay, what's your 10 best ideas to increase productivity, and start with that.
All right. Well, interesting idea. It looks like we have a call on the line. Are we ready to go? No, it's a no-go. Let me ask my question. It's actually a follow-up to something currently going on in City Council, something that might come back. It was put down, I think it went back to Health and Human Services Subcommittee on Monday. It's about this exotic animal show idea, perhaps a ban of sorts for exotic animal shows in Missoula. This most impacted the Shrine Circus, and it's something we've talked about on the show. I wanted to get your take on that. Starting with Harlan, is that something you would support?
Wow, you're really trying to put a target on my back for the activists, aren't you? So here's the thing. The way the ordinance was written was wild and exotic animals. And there a lot of people that got up and spoke talked about how the wild elephant, it was unfair, it wasn't its natural instinct. It was everything I could do not to stand up and say, you do understand there's two types of elephants. There's the wild African elephant, which it cannot be domesticated, and then there's the Asian elephant, which has been domesticated for 4,000 years. In Thailand, there's 3 times more domesticated elephants than there are in the wild. So this idea that the elephants the Shriner Circus are using are these wild, majestic animals that have been yanked out of the African savanna and forced to perform is just not true. These animals, throughout time, have bonded with their human trainers and are beasts of burden. They're family members. So, no, I would not support it.
All right. Let's move over to Jack. Jack, what is your thought on the exotic animal show ban?
I have to admit that I'm not a big fan of exotic animal exhibitions. However, I'm also not a big fan of symbolic gestures, and it does seem to me that in this case of enacting a potential ban on having any sort of exhibit here happen within Missoula city limits is more of a symbolic gesture. It's not really addressing, for those who are concerned about the treatment of animals, simply saying we're not going to have it here isn't really addressing that. It's just trying to build momentum towards maybe forcing change. I'd rather see us work with exhibitioners rather than enact bans that then are limiting the options of others.
Well, let me ask you this. Since you're only opposed to it because of its impact, I mean, it would take a route off of this tour that they make for the circus. I mean, that would be a big financial impact to them unless they change their decision and decide not to show animal shows. I mean, that is a power within Missoula County's, Missoula City's ability. It seems like to me that it's not just a symbolic gesture, that there is real financial impact.
I think that's a good point, and it's an indication that I think that's part of the reason why I went back to committee, is to consider what the full impacts of this are, and I need to do more thinking about that. I watched much of the deposition that happened on Monday night, the public comment, and I felt that there were a lot of very interesting issues raised, but most clearly that it also raised a lot of emotion. And anytime we make decisions based on emotion rather than looking at what's really going on, we put ourselves in a pretty difficult position. So. All
right. Island, why don't you go ahead and answer that question? What about the exotic animal show ban in Missoula? What are your thoughts?
I was trying to formulate my answer and realized that both Harlan and Jack have hit on all of the points. And so I will say that although I also support not having, or that sort of treatment to these beautiful creatures, I also would like to think more about the actual economic repercussions for it, for not just for the Shrine Circus, but also for Missoula right now as far as bringing in that income. And I will just say that I am not for it.
All right, so everybody is against the exotic animal show ban, either because they're against it in principle or because they're against it out of practical reasons. Is that fair enough? All right. We're going to go to a break. Taking your calls, 721-1290. Go ahead and call in, 721-1290. We'll get your question on the air. We'll be back right after this quick commercial break. All right. My segue music, which was awesome, just kicked out of queue. Apparently, the computer doesn't like Jimi Hendrix, so I apologize for not being able to cue that up for you. We're back on Talkback, taking your questions and calls, and we're going to go straight to the phones. It looks like we've got Patty on the line. Patty, thanks for calling in. Please ask a question that all three candidates can answer.
Well, I think that they should be really careful before they pass any new tax laws, because remember the lottery? What did they tell us the lottery would pay for?
I think it was for schools, if I'm not mistaken.
It was for the teachers' retirement fund, which I think is in trouble. And what did they do with the lottery money, which is significant?
Dump it into the general fund, I guess.
Mm-hmm, that's right. So that's a big problem. And there seems to be, once they get a government job, there is no accountability. Or once they get that money, there's no accountability. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, thanks, Patty.
Thank you.
That really wasn't a question. Does anyone want to respond to that? You just raise your hand, or I'll go to the next call. All right, Candy. Candy, you're on the line.
Okay. I wanted to talk about transparency. Everybody that's run for city council has said that they were for transparency in government. And since I've been attending meetings since 1988, I have never seen anybody be accountable for transparency except for Adam Hertz, and that's a long time. So I want to ask
If I'm not mistaken, Caitlin
Good.
Koppel also worked with Adam Hertz on some transparency stuff.
Yeah, but not enough, because this population of Missoula still has trouble finding out what is going on in Missoula City Council. And like I said, Adam was the biggest purveyor of transparency that I've seen on City Council. And I think that when we have something like the circus thing to come up, which most people didn't have an idea about, and was purveyed by only two people to begin with, that we need a lot more transparency in our city government, our council people coming forward and saying, hey, this is on the agenda, people pay attention, because we want to hear before the decision is made from the citizens of Missoula, because it has been my experience that many things get passed and aren't transparent.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks for your call, Candy. All right, real quick, I will have you guys respond to the issue of transparency. Do you feel that Missoula City Council is transparent right now, or is it lacking in some ways? And if not, how would you change things? I think we ended with Harlan last. If you want to rove it back, that'd be great.
Sure. So I've been going to the city council meetings since January. Admittedly, I've missed 2, but pretty much all of them I've gone to. And the biggest problem I see with the process is that the public comment period always comes before any of the city council members speak. And then, so there's been times I've wanted to say something, but I didn't know where people were going to stand. And then I hear the council members' comments and their debate, and then they vote, and it's over with. So one of the things I'd love to see is that there be a comment period after the council members speak. The other big transparency issue that I know has got a lot of people upset is the books, the city books. We see the budget every year, which gives very basics, but it doesn't give the line items. It doesn't go into detail. And
from personal experience on this one, it is very difficult to read the city budget. Just trying to find out how much my mayor makes put me in a tailspin. I got told by 3 different departments that I was wrong, and I was given information from different departments that was apparently wrong. Yeah, it's a very convoluted issue, it seems to me, when it comes to if you actually want to nail down, and this is as a journalist, what the city is actually doing with the money that's coming in, where it's coming in from, and where it's going to. So it's confusing to me. I'm sure it's confusing to city council members as well. Let's go ahead and ask Jack the same question. Do you think there's issues with transparency at Missoula City Council, and how would you change them if there are?
I think there are always issues with transparency. We can always keep working at better ways to get word out, trying to make things more approachable. Caitlin worked on a number of things to try to make the budgeting process more inclusive and get people to, actually sit down and she was trying to organize a game to get people excited about being a participant in the budgetary process. I don't have any specific agendas that I've already planned out to bring forward in terms of transparency. I think the city is doing a good job of trying to, as best we can, working within a bureaucratic structure to try to make sure that there's information out there, that the agendas for the city council meetings and for all the committee meetings are posted well in advance. The individual council members can obviously do a lot more to try to get word out about things. And the question of public comment and how that factors into the city council deliberations is also, it's challenging. Oftentimes those city council sessions will go well into the evening, and if we switch the order in which public comment comes, then there's the potential that having the council members speak to their view of the issues before there's public comment would perhaps, many people would interpret that as that their comment no longer matters because the council's already stated their positions, and then I'm given the chance to talk. So, those are things that we can continue to talk about, but trying to find a way that meets everybody's expectations of transparency is, it's virtually impossible. It's something that has to be an ongoing dialogue.
All right. Eileen, any issues with transparency? If so, what would you change?
As far as transparency is concerned, I think one of the the best ways and best things that city government or really any government or public officials can do is by being more accessible to their constituency and to their community. And by accessible, I don't entirely mean just being able to be contacted through email or phones or things like that, but actually making it known and having a social media presence, as well as just trying to make issues actually accessible to all populations and being able to put things out there and put them in terms that people can understand, as well as that can get people to either support it or come out and actually participate in the process.
Like a live radio show.
Like a live radio show.
It sounds like a brilliant idea. I wish I had thought of that.
Do that.
We will be back right after this quick break with a question from Sue, and also we have a question from Mike on the line. We'll get you right after the break, I promise, in just a minute. Give us a call. We have one line open, 721-1290, to ask your question of the candidates. Remember, a question that all three can answer, if you will. All right. We are back on the Talkback Show. Again, my computer doesn't like Jimi Hendrix. I apologize. We're going live to answer some questions. First, I want to catch up on the Facebook. I understand we had a question about Anita Green. Anita is running in Ward 2. She couldn't be here today because she had a medical appointment. But if you catch our interview with her last Friday, I believe it was, on YouTube, you can watch what she had to say about a lot of these issues. Some of the issues are different. We didn't touch on, but I know she touched on housing. She did not touch on sales taxes, but we covered a bunch of other issues. We're going to go ahead and take our calls. We got Sue on the line. Thanks for calling in, Sue.
Good morning. So I just wanted to say one thing about the transparency issue. I think that Missoula is a very engaged community, and there's so much access to what's going on in the city council that if people don't know what's going on, especially about the exotic animal thing, it's just that they're not paying attention. So I just kind of want to give a shout-out to the fact that MCAT is available, and if people are interested, they pay attention, and if they're not, then they don't. So anyway.
Let me respond to that real quick, Sue.
Okay.
Because I do watch the city council videos almost every week, and a lot of stuff is missed out on those. For example, the last time they dropped budget numbers, it came after city council. The last time when we got the results from the water trial, it went mysteriously, instead of from the court, directly to Mayor Engen's office, and then he announced it after council hours, so it wasn't on video. I mean, there's a lot of major things that we miss out on unless you're there. And, and a lot of people are upset that the publication of record is the Missoula Independent and not the Missoulian, as one might expect, as the larger circulation paper. So I think that those are some of the things Candy was hitting on, and just to back Candy up on this, if there's one thing Candy is for sure of, she's almost always at City Council.
Oh, I know. She's there every week.
So,
well,
you had a question. Go ahead, Sue.
My question is that I'm wondering if any of these council people that are running, if they are aware of any of the other lawsuits against the city besides the Mountain Water case.
Which ones are top of mind for you?
Well, top of my mind comes the Wool versus City of Missoula case that is now being appealed to the Supreme Court for the third time.
Wow.
And I think, John, you know about this.
Yeah, we've had Mr. Wool on our show a few times. Yeah.
Yes, and the fact that it's now up to close to $500,000 in legal fees, and the city keeps appealing because they don't want to admit that they made a huge mistake. And so I'm just wondering if any of these council people are aware of this case, because it seems like these lawsuits don't really get talked about at city council meetings, and we're the ones who have to pay for it.
Let me ask them, Sue. Thanks for your call.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start with Island. Are you aware of the other lawsuits against Missoula City, and specifically the Wool versus the City of Missoula case?
I am actually aware of the other lawsuits and all of the legal fees that is being poured into Missoula right now. And as far as being able to talk about it, I am aware of it, as that is something that has come up in the last week a few times, actually, while I've been talking to people, and it is on my to Google list, and become more knowledgeable in that.
Okay, all right. And let's shift over. You're up there, Jack.
So much like Eileen, I can say that I'm aware of, I know particularly issues with public right-of-way and so forth, and I believe that is the crux of the Wool case.
Yeah, that's
with
just
the street expansion and so
private property versus public property on the right-of-way. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So I can say that I'm aware. Do I have a position on it? No, it's something I'm still researching.
Okay, Harlan.
So is this the South Avenue?
Yes, that is.
Okay, so we actually have a good friend that is one of the property owners on South Avenue.
Get closer to that mic.
So we have a friend that's one of the property owners on South Avenue that woke up one morning and his front parking was gone. And so we've been very aware of it through the time, and it's unbelievably frustrating to myself as somebody who's center right, who's fiscally conservative, who believes in property rights, that the city can be that much of a bully when it comes to condemnation.
Well, hold on real quick, Harlan. I don't know if you know enough about this yet. It's not condemnation because the city wasn't paying them for the property. It's worse than condemnation if you're a property rights person because they were literally just taking the property.
Yeah. So let's call it illegal condemnation.
Okay. Confiscation.
So yes, I know about it. I've listened to a good friend of ours. The stress, the legal fees that piled up, the city continually to fight it, and even when courts and Supreme Courts said they won, then them turning around and saying, "Oh, now we're going to fight you on the legal costs."
3 times now.
Yeah, it upsets me.
It seems to me, just as a casual Missoulian, if you're looking at ways to stop, spending money and you want to save money and reduce taxes, maybe stop being so litigious. There we go. I get the words out. All right. We got another caller on the line. Mike, you're up. Ask your question.
Yes, I got a couple comments and a question.
Go for it.
I don't think the transparency really even matters. I don't think they are transparent at all, but it doesn't matter. I was involved in a thing where we had to give public comments, write them down, and then they would read them. And they just sat there and read it, put it down, read it, put it down, read it, put it down. And at the break, I went up and asked this lady that was in charge of this, "You're not even discussing this, or you seem to even really care about these comments?" And she said, "Look, the law says all we're supposed to do is read public comments, and that's what we're doing." And I thought, at that point, oh gosh, this whole thing's hopeless, and then they just did whatever they wanted to after they got done with all of that. They went ahead and did what they were going to do anyway. It was just a form of.
You felt like you were left out of the system.
Well, yeah, they already have an agenda, and they're just going to do it anyway. They're the only reason they're doing public comments or letting people talk at city council meetings. The only reason they do that is because the law says they have to, or because they feel like it makes them look a little more, right or whatever. Also, in that circus deal, if one person can go to the city council and control a whole city that way, I think that's crazy. I know one person is responsible for this whole elephant thing, and there's no reason for that. And then...
Hold on. I'm going to just have you pause for a second, Mike. I'm going to take a commercial break, and then since we haven't got to the question yet, we'll have to ask that right after the break, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thanks for being patient with me. We'll be back right after this quick break. Like Mike, you can call. I have 2 lines open now, 721-1290, to ask your questions of candidates for Ward 2, Missoula City Council. Even though you don't live in Ward 2, you might not. There's a good chance you don't, since there's more of Missoula not in Ward 2 than in Ward 2. These decisions still affect you, and it's a great way for us to have that kind of transparency to find out what people are like and what they believe before we actually hit the street running with actual voting. So give us a call at 721-1290. We'll be back in just a second with Mike's question. Right, we're back on the Talk Back Show. I have a question on Facebook for everybody real quick. You know what? Let's get to Mike's question. Totally forgot about Mike. How horrible of me. Mike, let's get your question out there. Sorry about the long wait.
John, you're doing a great job. I thought of 2 other issues that are pertinent. If you remember the homosexual deal that we had several years ago, they planned that, the city council members planned that amongst themselves a month before that whole thing was done. And
are you talking about the non-discrimination ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
And they brought in the ACLU, and they planned a whole thing. They wrote it all up. They were ready for it. they had things ready for any complaint that they had. They were ready to handle it, and so it was all pre-done. It was an agenda, and same thing with that sidewalk that they put in over there behind Five Guys. I went to that meeting, and nobody was there except for the city council members that came and some of their friends, and all they did was complain and said, "Oh, well, they're going to gripe about this, they're going to gripe about that. Well, let's do this instead." And so it was just a planning meeting on how to take care of all the complaints. So there's agendas out there that they want done, and they're going to do them whether we complain or not.
Okay.
Now,
let's get to
my
the question, if we could. Awesome.
I have two questions. What can we do? What can we really do as citizens to make a difference? And also, what are you going to do as a city council person to be objective and to not to have an agenda that you're trying to push through? Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and take the first question. I think did we end at Harlan?
No,
or did we?
Started with Harlan.
We started with Harlan. So let's start with Anita Island this time.
As far as what you can do as a citizen, I absolutely believe in your number one thing that you can do: vote, participate, come on out, be registered to vote at your current address, as well as being able to actually come out and participate at these meetings. Yes, sometimes maybe it won't feel like you are actually doing anything, but I think that just by coming up and letting your voice be heard and participating, you're absolutely doing something. You're doing something incredible and amazing, and your civic duty. So please come on out and participate in civic engagement. As far as what I will do to be as objective as I can and not put forward agendas or things of that nature, I will listen to my constituents. I would listen and try and be as much as I can. I would try to put my own agenda aside and put forward the agenda of my constituents.
All right, let's move over to Jack. Jack, go ahead.
I think in general, if someone goes into a meeting with the assumption that the system is rigged, then that's what you're going to see. If you go in with the assumption that this is an open process and these are people that are my neighbors that I can speak with and that we are working on this together and we're trying to negotiate an answer that works for everyone, or the best for everyone, then it changes the dynamic. And so that's what I would say. I think, public participation is recognizing that it's not, this is what I want, and therefore I expect the city to give that back, to follow my lead, to be part of the discussion, to recognize that there are many voices on every issue. As far as how I will operate on city council, and what my intention is to, I think it may sound like a platitude, but it's very meaningful to me to listen, to take the public comment very seriously, to never go in with the sense that with every issue, to be an informed member of council, I have to have some point of view before I have to do my research. But to take that public comment period very seriously, that to have my mind open so that if something comes up through that it could sway actually the way that I end up voting on a decision.
All right, and Harlan.
I'd say the number one thing you could do is go to the city council meetings and get your opinions on the record and on the videos. I'm pretty sure that the ones that go in by email, they see it, and if you really want to go digging through the city website, you can find those emails, but it doesn't have the same effect. So I would say go to the city council meetings. As far as agenda, my day job, 90% is analyzing ideas with good intentions and seeing if they're financially feasible. And just because something is a really good idea or it doesn't mean that it makes sense financially. So all I can promise as a fiscal conservative is that everything that comes across I will look at fairly and without an agenda and say, yes, we can afford this, or yes, it makes sense, or yes, it's going to help the city and help our city grow in a good way.
All right. We have a question on Facebook for all of you. We're going to start with Harlan, work our way back, and then we wanted to get into housing again, so we'll talk about that when we get back to Island. But the question is, the CSKT, and it's from Elena, by the way, the CSKT Water Rights Compact is a major issue facing Montana. I understand the Missoula City Council passed a resolution supporting the compact. Do you personally oppose or support the compact, and why? Starting with Harlan.
So there are so many layers to that question. In short, I don't think it was the city's place to do that, so I would not have supported it.
Supported the resolution out of City Council?
Yeah, that's a state level issue.
All right. To Jack.
I do support the water compact with the Confederated Tribes. We live in an area that is directly impacted. It's a part of the historic treaty, and I think I not only support it, but I also very adamantly believe that it's critical to the economic future of our state, of our community, and to recognize existing tribal rights is immutable.
All right, and to Island.
For sake of brevity, yes, I also support the compact that was just passed, and would love to. Well, no, I'll just echo what Jack said. It's absolutely necessary to our economy, to the overall state industry, as well as especially respecting tribal rights.
All right, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll take questions from Emmett and Dennis. I want to get a quick response from each of you about the affordable housing question. We didn't get to hear from Island earlier just because of the nature of the flow of the questions as we went across. So we'll start with that, and then we'll get Emmett and Dennis on for their questions as well. Be back in just a second. I want to go straight to questions and comments. We're going to start with Dennis because I understand Dennis has a question about affordable housing. So, Island, you'll be the first to respond to this question, okay? All right, go ahead, Dennis, you're up.
Okay, on affordable housing, I lived in Spokane for a little bit, and they had affordable housing there, apartment complexes, where if you were a husband and wife and had one kid, you got a two-bedroom apartment, and it was based on your income. And if you had like 2 kids or 3 kids, you got a 3-bedroom based on your income, and that included your water and your heat. What I'd like to know is, the candidates, would you look into something like that?
All right. Well, thanks for your question. All right, Eileen, you're up.
I have been looking into policies that are in cities or municipalities that are similar to Missoula. So yes, absolutely, I will look into it, and thank you for flagging that as an option.
All right, Jack.
We already have a number of programs. We have some nonprofit organizations that are doing affordable housing, particularly apartment units. They rely a lot on federal subsidies to help establish. We have the Missoula Housing Authority that addresses that as well.
Homeward, right?
Homeward, exactly, is a nonprofit that is also doing that. So it is something that I encourage and we need to keep looking at, but we also need to look at the fact that for many people, having an apartment as opposed to having a home is a fundamental change in how they feel as they're a part of the community. So we need to look at not just affordable apartments, but affordable homes as well.
All right, over to you, Harlan.
Wow, this couldn't be a better setup for me. So for those of you who don't know, for the last 6 years, I've worked in the affordable housing industry.
Oh, my goodness.
For both for-profit, and I am the development coordinator for the Missoula Housing Authority. So just so you know, those do exist. There are a couple different programs that you can qualify for that. The easiest one to get into is tax credits, which are a really good one because they're once you get in, if you start making more money, you don't lose your housing. There's public housing, there's Section 8. Those have a fairly long wait list. There are 4 different organizations in town: Missoula Housing Authority, Homeward, Blue Line Development.
Let me cut to the chase since we're crunching on time here.
Yeah.
What should Missoula City Council do, and what would you do in Missoula City Council to operate housing, to make it more affordable, whatever, along these lines from that particular chair?
So the holdback is the actual funding sources. So it's very competitive throughout the state. The city council and the mayor specifically, the more they can do to show support for these 4 organizations when they're applying for these funds, that's the best thing they can do.
All right. Let's go ahead and grab Emmett's question. Emmett, real quick, okay? Because we're running out of time.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just wondering which of the three is the most conservative candidate. I'm rather conservative myself, and I was against the
real quick, go ahead and give us a definition of conservative. That way we
well,
can get a scale
like as
here.
far as like I was against the gay ordinance here, the quote unquote equality ordinance.
Yeah.
And while I didn't the naked bike ride didn't light my fire one way or the other, I really didn't care for it much. I think Missoula is becoming quote unquote too progressive. Which one of you are more conservative on the social issues? Which was the three?
Social conservative. That's an interesting question. We'll have you rank yourselves 0 to 10 on the social conservative scale, starting with Harlan.
An L, libertarian. Don't tell me how to live my life. I'm not going to tell you how to live yours.
All right, over to you, Jack.
I, to be honest, would have to put myself probably in like the 2 to 3 range. I am a social progressive.
Okay, well, so 2 to 3,
meaning that
you probably weren't in the bike ride.
Personally not involved in that, but had absolutely no problem with it. And I think I tend not to ascribe my personal values to how others should live theirs.
Okay, and Eileen?
I also am a social progressive, and absolutely when it comes to making it so that people can live their own lives, make their own choices however they want, I'm going to support it.
All right.